Welcome back, guys. In this video, we are going to build our very first automation inside of make.com. Now, this automation is going to be one that's going to save you a ton of time every single day and every single week. Honestly, it's exactly the same automation that I use to free up a ton of my time when leads come in and need to be responded to. In all honesty, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. We have about 5 or 6 steps here that are going to save so much time. Now, often what happens is you'll have leads submit a form on your website, and we know that speed to lead is so important. And because you're doing so much every single day, it's very easy for these things to slip through the cracks, and it either have an hour or maybe a few days go by or somewhere in between, and that lead's not getting responded to. And this can honestly make the difference between actually turning that lead into a customer or losing them forever. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to build this step by step, and we're going to do it together, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is that this example of it is a pretty straightforward and standard example. There are a few pieces that you may want to switch and swap out based on the softwares or technologies that you are currently using inside your business. And if you're not, then I've got some recommendations for you as well. Now, what you'll notice here, first of all, is that we have a Google form. So Google form is just one of the ways that we can take information or retrieve information from people as they submit it. The next is that you'll notice we have a ChatGPT node at the top, which is connected to nothing. And that's because when I build these automations out, when it comes to email drafting, I actually prefer to use Claude. I find Claude can sound a lot more like me more easily, and its creative writing capabilities are just significantly better. So I'm going to show you how to set up both GPT and Claude, but my personal preference for these automations is to actually use Claude. Now, that is specific to the creative writing. Next up, what happens is we draft an email, and you can actually build these automations out to just straight send the email. But personally, I like to review them at the end of the day if they have not already been sent. So what I will often do is have them come in, give them a quick read, and then just press send. But what you can do is you can actually just change this so that it'll automatically send it. Then what we do is we just take the output that Claude has written for us, and we are just going to reformat it a little bit for our records so that it shows up a little more cleanly. And then we're just going to update our Google Sheet to reflect the email that was written. So I'm going to show you how this works. So we've got a quick little Google form here, and I'm going to run you through how this is going to look. So you'll notice that in this example, I've created a new website inquiry form. So basically, I'm playing the role of a website designer for this example. So I've now filled out this form, and when I click submit, again, we're pretending I'm the user here, and when I press submit, the form has been submitted, and we can also see that because our Google form is automatically connected to a Google Sheet, that creation happens automatically. There's no automations needed there. That's just a feature of Google Forms. So we'll see all of that information has now been populated into our Google form, and we have a field at the end, a column at the end called email draft, which is what we're going to update once the email draft has actually been written. So now what you'll see here is at the beginning of this email this automation, we have a trigger. Now, this particular trigger is based exclusively on running it manually. I'll show you and talk about triggers in a minute, but for right now, that is how this trigger, or how this workflow and this automation actually begins. So if I run once, we're going to see that the Google form result has now been pulled in, and now Claude is going through and it's creating that email for us. The rest of the steps happen pretty quickly, but then the email gets drafted, the text is parsed and basically just cleaned up for us for our records. We then search to find the correct row inside of Google Sheets, and then we update that record. You'll see this has actually been run twice because I did have a second example in there, a second row that I tested, but I deleted it. So what we're going to see here is we now have our record. So what we had before previously with all of the information that was submitted by our user, that's all still remained unchanged. But now what we see at the end is actually an email, and I'm going to just fix our wrapping. Here is the email that has been drafted on our behalf by our assistant to send back to the client. So now if I go back over to Gmail, I will see that I have my drafted email here. And here is our drafted email that was written by AI inside of our automation. Hey there, thanks for reaching out. I totally get the concern about being burned by developers before. Unfortunately, that happens way too often in this industry. A sales funnel in the 5 to 10K range sounds like something we could definitely work on, right? Because in this example, we said that we were looking for a sales funnel. That's the type of website that we said we were looking for. So, what are you actually selling through this funnel, right? Now we're starting to get some inquiries, and I'll show you the prompt and how we are actually guiding AI to ask questions and to elicit answers from our prospect, right? So we'll go through this in more detail, but that's the gist of it. And now from here, we have the email set. We have all of the information set that we need, and all we need to do is just send that email out. So let's now look at this step by step. So first thing that I want to cover here is our trigger. So every workflow, every automation starts with a trigger. Now the way that that works and the way the trigger is set up is entirely based on the software you're using. So for example, if I click to add, if I double click anywhere on the canvas and I click because I want to add a new node, I'm going to search the word form just so you can get an idea of all of the different integrations and different softwares that plug in here, because maybe you're not using Google Forms. Maybe you're using something like, let's see, some of the ones that I've used in the past. We have JotForms. JotForm is great. So if we were going to use JotForm, for example, we would click this. And you notice that form submissions, if we watch for submissions, you see instant ACID. What that means is that the moment that a form is submitted, this workflow will automatically run, and you don't have to do anything. For the example that I'm showing you, I had to manually run it myself. There is a way in Google to schedule it to be run, but Google Forms does not have the ability to do an instant form submission, which applications like JotForm do. So JotForm is an amazing one. You could also go back here and we could search in Typeform. That's another great one. And you can see watch responses, instant ACID. Again, that is going to be another workflow trigger that will fire instantly the moment a form submission comes in. So again, let's just even take a look. There are all of these form softwares. FormStack is another popular one. All of these form softwares that you could be using, maybe some of you already are. So you can actually just click those nodes, click for this tool specifically, and then you can enter and use that as your actual trigger. So let's say, for example, I was going to use JotForm and I wanted to use this watch for submissions. All I would do is I would unclick here. I would drag this, which is our trigger. We can drag it and move it over to JotForm. And now you'll see that that changes to a little lightning bolt. That little lightning bolt now means that anytime an action takes place, which in this case is a submission coming in, this form will send that data to this workflow, and this workflow will automatically start. Now all I have to do is just drag this little plus and it connected. So now instead of the Google form firing this automation, we can now see that JotForm will fire this automation and continue down the same path. By the way, if you do want this entire workflow just in a copy and paste method to at least get started so you can look at exactly what I'm looking at, I'm including that in the description down below. So just download that file, come into your account, and you're going to click on these three dots and you're going to press import blueprint and just drop that file directly into make.com and you'll be good to go. Okay, so I'm going to move this back to Google Forms because that's what we are using. And I'm going to show you exactly how this is built step by step. So now we want to connect this again. So what we're going to do here is we are going to double click. We're going to add Google Forms. So I'm just going to build this directly underneath so you can see exactly how this works. So what we're going to do is we have all of the different triggers, all of the different actions that can be taken. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to click Watch Responses. So now what we're going to do inside of Watch Responses is we have to, of course, connect to our Google account. So what we're going to do is press, if you have not connected to your Google account already, you're going to press Add. Now, once you are in here, all you need to do is sign in with Google. Press Sign in with Google, a pop-up will come up, and you'll just sign into your Google account. You will allow the connection, and then this will be good to go. Now, what you're going to do, once that connection has been made, you'll see there is a Form ID section here. So what we need to do is fill out this Form ID. So we can search, but there's nothing here that we can actually just reference quickly. So I'm going to show you how to actually get that ID. So what you're going to want to do is go back to the form builder page. You're going to go to forms.google.com and you're going to open up the form where you want to edit it. Then you will see that there's a word edit right at the end. Okay? We're going to get rid of that word and we're going to get rid of that last slash. And now everything from that point up into the leading slash, you're going to copy because that is the ID. So now we're going to paste this ID in. And this limit here basically is just setting the number of records that will come in at once. Because what happens is, let's say you run this trigger every 15 minutes, which you can set up. If there have been more than one form submission that has come in, we want to make sure that we accommodate for that and allow it to pull multiple records. Otherwise, it will only bring in one. So we can even set this to a higher number. We can set it to 10. It means if within 15 minutes, one form submission has come in, it will pull one. If 5 have come in, it will pull all 5. So now I'm just going to save. And now this is where we actually choose where to start. So we can say specific date, all, choose manually, or from now on. So I'm going to choose from now on. And then if we actually move this trigger down, we can now run the scenario at regular intervals, one time only, every day, days of the week, or specified days. So we can really just customize the start. If you are going to be running this in the background, I would recommend doing this at regular intervals and probably every 60 minutes. Because if you run it every 15 minutes, you will use up your actual operations very, very quickly. So this is one of the advantages of, like I showed you with Jotform, using Jotform instead, because what it will do is actually only fire when the form submission comes in. So right now we'll say we're going to actually go back instead of intervals. We're going to say on demand, which means I can manually run this workflow. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is move into the AI component and the AI piece. So what you're going to need to do first of all is we're going to explore both OpenAI and Anthropic. So first thing you need to do is you need to go to platform.openai.com. And I'm going to link this down below just like I'll do with the Anthropic links, but platform.openai.com. Now, you are not using ChatGPT. This does not count as part of your ChatGPT subscription. This is actually entirely separate. And the nice thing is this is significantly cheaper. So yes, you will need to load your account with money, but $5 will get you, in all honesty, months worth of emails being written. So it's significantly, significantly cheaper. So now what you're going to do is you're going to come to the gear icon, which is your settings. And on the left-hand side, you are going to see a few different options. Number one is billing. So you're going to need to enter your billing and you will see your credit balance here. Okay. Then what you're going to want to do on the left-hand side again is come and click on API keys. So now what we're going to need to do, this section will be blank for you, but what you're going to want to do is come to create new secret key at the top right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type in, I'm creating a new node and I'm going to create OpenAI. And what we want to do is create a completion. Creating a completion is essentially just us messaging into OpenAI one time. We only need a one-time purpose for this. This is not something where we're referencing an assistant or messaging some sort of ongoing conversation. So creating a completion, which is just sending a prompt, is all we need. So here's what we need to do. We're going to add a new OpenAI connection, right? So here we're going to do lead responder connection. And we need to get an API key. That is the mandatory field here. So we go back and we are going to create a new secret key and we're going to say lead responder. And for project, we are just going to select our default. Okay. So now inside of our default project, we can create secret key. Now what this is going to do is give you a secret key. Now don't share this information with anybody. This is super, super private. Basically in most of these apps, when they give you a secret key, once you access it once, you can no longer see it again. So copy it. And then we are going to go back into make.com and we are going to paste that secret key and we're going to save. And now we are fully connected into the back end of ChatGPT. Now this is exactly the same way that things work when we connect to Anthropic, and I'll show you that in a second. So now we have the ability to change our model. My recommendation for this, because this is a pretty basic use case, I would recommend probably scrolling down and going with either 4.0 or 4.0 mini. 4.0 mini is probably the better of the choices here. It's super fast. It's very inexpensive. So your credits or your tokens that you purchase will last you a long time. Okay, so now what we need to do from here, once this loads, is we need to basically configure the prompt that we are giving ChatGPT. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click add message. Now, unlike in the front end of ChatGPT, where you are just prompting the application, there are levels to it. We have more control in the back end now. So you'll see if I select this role box, we have user, assistant, the developer system, or the tool. The only ones you'll ever likely interact with and control are going to be either the user or the system. So basically the user is essentially the same thing as the way that we message ChatGPT when we're using chatgpt.com. The system is a message in the background that gives this the actual chat bot or the chat window or the chat message the context and understanding of what it's doing. You don't do that ever on chatgpt.com because you don't have the ability to. And what's nice for this automation that we're using, it's pretty simple, it's pretty basic, so we actually only need to use the user. We can kind of stuff everything into the user role, and we don't really need to split it up. That's not always the best plan of attack. That's not always the most efficient way to do it, but for our use case here, it's totally fine. So I'm going to select user, and then inside of text context, this is where we actually provide what our prompt is, what our instructions are. So what I've done is I've given you a Google Sheet, also, excuse me, not a sheet, a doc, also linked below, and inside of this, you are going to see that there is a copy and paste prompt, and I've given you some areas to fill out. Right? These are essentially little variables that I want you to complete, because these are what are going to give your email agent, your email assistant, the context and the understanding of who it's actually emailing on behalf of. I'm going to copy and paste that from the Anthropic note above, just so you can see. Now, what I've also done is at the end of the prompt, which you'll see down here, I'm also including all of the form submission information. Now, the way that we do that, if you can see this, what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to copy and paste this, because now we can see everything I've programmed it with, which is essentially telling it that I'm an expert web designer. I specialize in building beautiful websites and optimizing websites for my clients, right? So I'm going to copy this, and we're going to bring it down to our ChatGPT, our GPT 4.0. Text context is where I'm going to paste this in. Now, in your case, what you would be doing is you would actually be pasting it from here once you make the edits. Now, this is a really important thing to note. You'll notice here that when I pasted it, these values went basically to like a bright white outline. And that's because they were referencing this node up here, number 5. So what we actually need to do is connect it with this node, which is number 15. So here's how we're going to do this. I am going to, for testing, submit another form response. I'm going to go in and actually delete this one here. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to change this, because I don't want any chances of this running more than once. We only want it one time. So we're going to go and we're going to run this test again. Say, now this is actually all optional, so I'm not even going to bother filling out the rest for now, because I'm going to submit it. Okay, so we're submitting our form. We'll see that this is populated in our sheet again, which is great. And now, once I manually run this, oh, that's okay. It's giving me warnings because this is not, the ChatGPT is not successfully set up. So if I press run once, it's going to run all of the nodes that are connected to the trigger. But what I can actually do is just right click on any individual node and press run this module only. So now, oh, let's see here. We have an error. Permission denied. So as we see, we have this error here, and what we need to make sure of is we have multiple accounts sometimes connected, and I want to make sure that the account that I'm connected to is the correct one that actually has access to the form ID. So that's where the problem lies. So what I'm going to do is we are going to run that node again. And now you'll see no results. Now the reason no results came up is because when I actually went to save this, let's see, I'll show you this error again. Save right here from now on. So what this means, because I changed it, or because I selected from now on, I submitted my test previously, and because I submitted it previously, it means that this is not going to recognize it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to save. I'm going to come back. I'm going to double click. We are going to change this correctly to the correct account. I'm going to say since specific date, or we'll go to all, and we will run one more time. Now, the reason why that failed is because this actual node was run and there was an error on that because I didn't fill everything out. So we only needed the information from this first node. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at the answers. So the answers that were all submitted, we see our email address. We got everything that we needed here. So this is perfect. So now that we double click into our OpenAI module, what we are going to do is we are going to update the variables in here. So remember, these variables were showing up like completely blank because they were referencing this node up here, number 5, which doesn't have any information in it anymore. So what we would do is we want to replace this information. So we're looking for answers, text answers, right? So sender, we want to find the sender. So in our case, we know the sender is the individual's name. So what we're going to do is we are going to take first name. So we want to do, you see there's little arrows here. We want to open those up all the way down. So we can go value. We want to take their first name, space, last name, and excellent. And we want to do that for all of the remaining options. For our email, our phone number, our current website, all that stuff. We basically want to continue to populate that out fully. Once that's done, you will have something that looks exactly like this. Perfect. So that's all done. So now that we have connected all of the nodes inside of this ChatGPT text context, we can move on. So what we're going to do now is we are going to create an email. So there's a couple things to note here. There is a Gmail tool, but the email tool actually gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility in terms of customization, and it's actually just a lot more stable. I find there's a lot more errors when you're using the Gmail tool, and you can still actually connect in your business Gmail account inside the email tool here. So big star asterisk here, depending on the email server that you are using, you can connect almost all of them in here, but if you're using a personal Gmail account, so at gmail.com, you actually can't use this particular feature. So what I would recommend is if you go to Google Business Suite, if anybody is doing any type of business with Google, this is the best possible way to go. What you can do is, I'm in Canadian, so Canadian dollars, you're looking at $9 a month, and you get an incredible Gmail email address, including Google Drive, Sheets, Calendar, meeting, all that stuff. Notebook LM. You also get Gemini included in that. So I would definitely recommend doing that if you are not using Google for Business. It's one of the best $10 you'll ever spend. So what we'll do here is we will connect in our email account. So the same way that we connected our Google Forms, you just need to sign into your email account. So when you do that, you're going to create an email draft. So here at the top, you will have the ability to add a new account. You will be clicking on Google Restricted, and this is where you will save and add a new account, and a pop-up will come up and it'll prompt you to sign in. Now, I've already done that, so I'm not going to do that again now. But basically, if we look at this previous connection, what we need to do is we need to sign in and select our folder, which is going to be our drafts folder. So our folder is our drafts, and we are looking for drafts. Perfect. And inside of drafts, what we can do now is we can actually start to set up all the information of who this email is going to. We can set our recipient, which is going to be the sender. So in our case, it's the respondent email, the person who sent us the initial inquiry. Then our subject line, personally, the way that I like to reply is I just like to say, hey, and then I add the user's first name. Boom, there it is. Content type, we can use either HTML or plain text. And for the content, what we're going to do is we are going to take the result from the ChatGPT output, which is right here. Now, that's really all we need to do. And a couple advanced settings that we do want to set is we want to set our name and who it's coming from. So we would say it's coming from Justin, the website guy, and my email is hello@justin.ca. And sender, we want to go leave that, but reply to, we want to have this be the same email address. So now basically what happens is the sender we are setting as the user who has emailed us or who has submitted the form. The from is who we're sending it from, our own email address. And the reply to is when they receive the email back and they hit the reply button, we want it to come to our email. So we want to specify all of those things. From there, we can just press save. Now, if we confirm that with all the information that we have above here, then that is perfect. And that is exactly right. That's all we need. One thing I would recommend, if you are on a personal Gmail account, like I said, upgrading it. And if upgrading is not an option, then you cannot use a paid email subscription service of any kind, then what I would do is I would essentially just eliminate this node entirely, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to then, instead of actually crafting this email inside of Gmail and having it draft for you, the way that's going to work is it's going to come back into your spreadsheet and it's actually just going to fill out this email draft section for you. So this will be completely filled out. So now what you can do is you can just manually copy and paste that. So yes, there is an added step in there for you to do, but at least that's saved you still a ton of work and a ton of time from actually reading and drafting that inquiry from your potential customer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our text parser here. So all we're doing is we are taking HTML text, because if you see here, if we go to see the results from our ChatGPT output, we can say our result. We see that there's all these weird tags, these P tags, paragraph tags, list tags. We want to strip that out so that when we actually load that into our spreadsheet to track what we've done, it's not going to show up. The nice thing here is those are called HTML tags. And remember, when we sent this email, the content type is HTML. So we don't actually have to strip that out right then and there. So what we're going to do here is we are going to just search for, we're going to go down to the bottom here where we have a text parser tool, and we are going to click HTML to text. Now we're going to bring this up and connect it. And now all we do is we take the output from our ChatGPT node, which is our result, and we save it. Great, now we're almost there. Once we get to the end, I'm going to show you how to connect in Anthropic if you want to use that instead. But for right now, I'm going to continue on with this. We have 2 nodes left, and then we are done. So we're almost there, almost at the finish line. If you're still with me, you are doing great. I know this seems like a lot of steps, but I want to be very thorough so you understand how this works. So now what we need to do is we need to go into our Google Sheet. So we need to find the row that is already in there. So the user submitted the form, it put a record into our Google Sheet. So we want to find that record, and then we want to update it because we want to add in the text for our email draft. Okay, so all we're going to do, we go back into Make. We are now going to search for Google Sheets. And what we're going to do is we are going to look for find a row. And we can just actually type that in at the bottom. Where are we here? We want to... search rows, not find, search rows. And again, same thing, you want to connect into Google. So if you have not already, you're going to click add and connect in, exact same way. Sign into your account, accept the permissions, and then you're good. Then what we want to do is we want to select the file from Google Drive. Select from My Drive, spreadsheet ID, we are looking for the website inquiry form. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to select the sheet, form responses. It's the only sheet in there. And now what we want to do is the column range. So what we want to do is we can just leave this open. If we want to just go A to Z, that's fine too. It'll search through fewer columns, which is fine. We don't actually need to search that many columns. We can be more specific if we want, but it's not that big of a deal for right now. Okay, so filter. So now this is going to show us all of the column headings. So we're going to search for email address because the email address is one of the unique identifiers. So email address. Then what we're going to say is equals to. You can change that, but for now we want to leave it to equals. And we're going to set, remember if we go back now, our user submitted their email. So this respondent email is what we want to enter into that box. So now what's happening is this is going to search our Google Sheet for the email address column specifically, and it's going to look for when the email address column equals the same as the respondent email that came in, which in our case is my email. So we're going to save. So what I'm going to do is I can right click and I can run this module only. This will give us a result. You'll see I can manually enter the information here. And this is the email that I used, and that is exists in the record in that spreadsheet. So I'm going to press OK. And now we actually get a result. So now we can see that the result has shown up. And what you can see here is a value called row number. So we have row number equals 2. I'll show you how we're going to use that. So we've now searched for the rows. Amazing. Now what we have to do is update the record so that we can add the email draft that has been written. So we're going to go back into Make. We are going to now update a row. We're going to click Google Sheets again, and we're going to update a row. Same thing, we're going to make sure that we're connected to the right account. We are searching by path, My Drive. We're going to look for the spreadsheet ID, and we are going to select the website inquiry form. Sheet name is the same, form response is 1, and now row number is the thing that we're looking for. And if you remember, we just found that. That's what we were searching for. And you'll see 4th from the top is our row number value, number 2. So now this will tell us that we can change the data in that row number. And the only thing we want to change is this email draft form. And what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down, and we are going to take the formatted text, that parsed text, and we're going to input that in here. And now we can save. So now what's going to happen is this workflow, just as it is directly above it, is going to work perfectly successfully. It's going to watch for our form submissions. And when a new form submission comes in, when we trigger it, it is going to then send that form information into ChatGPT or into our OpenAI 4.0 mini model, which is then going to craft our email. Then we are going to have that email drafted for us. It's then going to format the text, and it's going to send it back into our Google Sheet so that we can actually track it there. So now that's it. From front to back, you have built the entire automation. And now what I'm going to show you just as a quick bonus is how to set up Claude's Anthropic in the API. So what you're going to do, similar to how we went to platform.openai.com, we are going to go to console.anthropic.com. Now what we're going to do here is we are going to scroll to the bottom left. We are going to, we're going to open up this menu on the left. And then what we are going to do from here is we are going to go to our API keys. From here, we are going to add a new API key. We're going to call it default. We are going to say lead responder test, and we are going to add. So now we have our API key, and we're just going to copy that. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to make.com. We are going to create a new Anthropic Claude node, and we are going to create a prompt. Now from here, this connection just means that we've added a new node and it's not connected to any workflow and it wants us to connect. So if I just say connect automatically, it's going to put it at the very end. Well, for whatever reason, it decided to attach it to our to our GPT 4.0 mini at the top. It actually doesn't matter for the sake of this example because we're not really using it. But here's what we're going to do. We are now going to create a new connection, and this is where we, let's say, lead responder connection, and I'm going to paste that API key and save. And now our Claude is connected. So what we're going to do is we're going to click model. We're going to select the model that we want to use. And for this use case, 3.7 Sonnet is perfect. We don't need anything higher than that. Max tokens, you can select the max number of tokens that are used. So tokens are essentially fragments of a word or an entire word depending on the length of it. It's basically a fragment of characters. So for this particular automation we have, you're not going to need anything too crazy. So I would probably set this at about 2,500, maybe 3,000, depending on the types of emails that you're getting. Now, the way this is structured is very similar to how OpenAI was structured with the GPT 4.0 mini node that we were working with. You have your message, and what we're going to do is we're going to set a role, and we're going to set user, and we're going to add our content. From here, we are setting text, because that's what we're doing. We're sending in text, and we want text back. We would set our text, and then we have a text box here, and that's where we would do the same thing we did before, which is where we copy, and we paste in replace. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Now, we would save that. And the way that we would actually go in and replace this OpenAI node in the bottom, we would right-click up here to unlink. Then what we would do is we would drag this down. We would do the same thing with our ChatGPT node here. We would unlink. And we would just move this right out of the way. And we would put Claude right in the middle, and you'll see that it'll automatically connect. Now, one thing that is important to note is because we have changed the connection, we're no longer using our OpenAI connection, you'll see that we just need to change this value here. Right here, we no longer are referencing the OpenAI model, we are now referencing Claude. So where we have Claude create a prompt, we would just need to replace that with text response. So you just need to be aware of these values that are being passed back and forth from node to node. But that is how you would successfully replace it. So now that is everything from front to back, like I said, to get you from zero experience inside of Make to an extremely thorough, in-depth build for creating an automatic lead responder inside of your email. We are going to set that name correctly. We are going to save this. And now we're getting an error because our OpenAI model at the bottom is connected to nothing, but we're going to save anyways. So now you have everything you need from a foundational skills understanding of how to at least get things up and running and get things set up inside of Make.com. Yes, that probably seemed like a lot of steps. Watch the video back again, pause, jump back and forth if you need to. I promise, once you understand how the data flows between these tools and between these nodes, it's not as complicated as it may feel at the moment. I promise. Feel free to pare this back and just do a couple of these things at a time. Just start with one node, see how that passes data, see how it tests, and then you can start to add in more complexities and more layers to it. But for right now, you can just grab the actual JSON file to this exact workflow down below, and that way you can at least play around with exactly the same thing that I'm looking at here. Of course, you will have to update the connections so that they're connected to your accounts, but other than that, you are good to go. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.